What up, everybody? Welcome to Coffee Hour with Paul. It's Friday. You made it. You made it through the week. You still got to get through the day, but you've made it through the week. You're on the downward slide now, looking for that 5 o'clock somewhere time. So thanks for joining me here on Coffee Hour, spending your morning with me, as you do Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, as we talk about all things electrical. And on today, we're going to be finishing up our talking about EGCs, equipment grounding conductors. And we'll be kind of answering any questions you may have as well. Feel free to post them and I will try to answer them. But we're going to end up the equipment grounds, and next week we'll start a whole new segment next week. Also an update, most of you that won something during the first quarter, we have your emails. You follow the instructions. I have sent them to, Jeff has them, and he's working on the responses to everybody to get you all coordinated and what you need to do. So we don't want to piecemeal it because something gets lost in the fray. So we want to make sure that we do it all at the same time. So Jeff will be taking care of all of that type of thing. So again, keep it all coordinated. All right. Okay. All right. So let's get on it today and get into it. I want to do some announcements and let some folks know what's going on here. Let's see. So let's do some announcement. Good morning, Adam. Glad to have you here. Brandon. Thanks for being here, Brandon. Glad to have you here. Let's see here. Charlie's in the house. Charlie, glad to have you here. Charlie, welcome. Good morning, Samantha. Hold on one second, real quick, while I turn something off here. Let's see here. Just bear with me. Hold on. And bear with me, folks. Okay, good deal. Sorry about that. I had to make sure I turned that off. And I got a couple more things I got to do now when I turn that off. So, all right. So, welcome everybody again. Let's finish our shout outs here. Let's see here. Samantha, good morning. Paul, good morning. Glad to have you here. Beatbox. I'm not feeling it today. Hold on. I don't know. That's the best I got. All right, let's see here. I always do the. Yeah, okay. Good morning, Marlon. Glad to have you in the house. Jonathan, Code Nerd, all in the house. Thanks to have you here. Tino, what's up? Glad to have you here. Everybody's in the house. Let's see where we at here. Scroll down a little bit. Born to Plum, welcome. Paul says, all's fair, love and war. That's what I'm talking about. Let's see. Yeah, Tino says, it's all OT from here, all overtime. I don't know. Still Friday, still normal hours, unless you're like many people. Thursdays, they're into their week. They work 4/12s or something like that. Let's see here. Frank, what's up? Welcome. Glad to have you here. Los Angeles, out there on the West Coast. Dude, up early on the West Coast. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Tom's in the house. Okay, feeling like my PhD in UMB. Working for me today. Got the brain fog going on. Yeah, I have already had 3 cups of coffee. I really stopped my cups at 3, and I'm back to the Pepsi. I get an early start, so I got to call it coffee hour. But reality, sometimes I work past the coffee and I have to get into the Diet Pepsi because it's just the number of hours I put in. I'm up early every day. So what's up, Josh? Shouting out to the Tube, Fast Tracks Tube. Fast Tracks Tube is blowing up. The subscriptions are coming in like crazy. People are liking it. They like the platform. And again, look for some serious changes coming to the Tube as far as interacting it with the Fast Track system. You also may notice, I don't know if you noticed, some of you may notice or not, but over on Fast Track System, the website's much more responsive, things like that. It's stuff that we're doing on the back side. Folks, hold on for a second. I got somebody sending a message in. Darlene, I text. Hold on for a second, folks. Sorry about that. Jeff and Darlene had a question, and it was in the middle of time. So, business keeps rolling. Got to keep rolling. So, let's see here. What's up, Nepo? Thank you. Jonathan's in the house. Good morning. Glad to have you here. Things get started early here. I mean, it is 8 a.m. now. I got people here. We've got people in the office. Darlene, Jeff. It's crazy. Let's see here. Rob says good morning from the rainy state of Iowa. All right. Good morning from Iowa. And is over on Fast Tracks Tube. Or any of you watching over on fasttracksystem.com, because we did add coffee hour over there. So check it out. What's up, David? Glad to have you here. Let's see here. Norman Jones, good morning. Glad to have you here. Cray Cray's in the house. Glad to have you here, Cray Cray. Erie's in the house this morning. Glad to have you here, Erie. Fast Track student working heavily into the Fast Track program. There you go. Jason is in the house. Another CMECP. Chooses not to use CMECP in his name like David does, but that's okay. That's fine, Jason. We'll let you go this time. Frank's in the house. Good morning, Frank. Red Dog. Oh, I forgot to add the whoop whoop. I will add that. I promise you. By next weekend, by Monday, I'll add the woof 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 woof. I'll add that in there. I promise. I got so busy. What's up? I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling, not as jacked up as I was yesterday, but I am feeling good today. A lot of stuff going on here at the old complex, so it's a crazy, crazy day here. What's up, Peter? Glad to have you here. Jason's Diet Coconut. I don't do Coke. I'm a Pepsi fan, so I got Diet Pepsi going on. The Coke and Pepsi wars. I don't know. Coke is just too sweet. Now, I mean, I'm forced to drink it because you know how Coke signs those deals with all those restaurants. So, you find more Diet Coke out there than I do Diet Pepsi. But if I have to buy it, I'm buying Diet Pepsi. It's just me. That type of thing. I also like Sprite Zero, but I don't drink it that much. What's up, Greg? Glad to have you in here. All those wins going in. Good morning, Edgar. Everybody hitting the win to get in on the spin. Oh, by the way, again, sponsored by Trade Hogs, Feed the Hog. Check it out. Also, again, like I said, for those that won the first quarter that followed the directions on our video, the video is also over on our YouTube channel. You want to watch it, gives you instructions of what to do. If your name is on that screen, then you follow the instructions at the end of the video, and we will get you all hooked up. Jeff is compiling everybody to send their instructions so he can do them all at one time. Those that have sent in, we got your info. Don't worry. Don't send it again. Okay? That type of thing. So, there we go. So, what's up, John? Thanks for joining. You were not allowed to include the circle R in the CMP? Yeah, I found that you can cut and paste it in. So if you get it from somewhere else and you cut it and you paste it, it allows sometimes it allows it, but that's okay. It is a registered trademark though, so people do know that. Cool. All right, let's see here. All right, there we go. We got everybody up in here. I see the wins up in here, so everybody's doing the hashtag win. Let's go on and end out. Oh, before I get started. Y'all have heard me talk about the coffee hour promo, NFC promo cards, and I didn't have them to show you that we'll be giving away these. Again, you can reprogram them once you get them if you want. If you want to use them to share the love, keep it with you and be our little promotional folks that can share all the stuff that has to do with us. And the coffee hour and our videos and all this kind of stuff and our courses and all that stuff. If you're that kind of person who wants to share the love, if you win one of these promo cards in the spin and you get the drawing, then what happens is we'll program these cards and you can reprogram it. But that's it right there. I don't know if I showed it to anybody. So these are thick. These are the NFC cards. So you see it's got the NFC chip in it. But as you can see, and y'all probably seen it. So this is a promo card. They are Can't really tell, but they're really thick. This is like really solid metal, steel. These are steel, by the way. So this is just a promo card again, but the real magic is in what it does. And I probably can demo this now that I understand how it works. So somebody has NFC enabled on their phone, and basically I have it set up because I use like 5 different browsers. So if you use one default browser, it'll pop up right away. But I use multiple. So you do this right here, you see it pulls up my browsers. Normally, if you just have one browser, so here you see what it pulls up, and all the goodness for our stuff is there. I don't know if that shows up very well. So basically, that's what the promo card is. You can program it easily to do whatever you want. But again, at the end of the day, all they do is take it, put it up there to hold it up to your card, whether it's your customer, whatnot. That's how NFC works. And it's just that simple. Yes, and the cover's still on. It just pays to know where your NFC. When you're doing a customer, you move it around, you'll find it. Or they may even know where it's at. And you might even have to ask them to turn on their NFC so you can share it with them. And then once they do that, they can actually save that to their desktop, that type of thing. Okay. Anyway, so that's really easy. Again, just take it and hold it up to the phone. You know, wherever your NFC is. Mine NFC is right here. So boom, right there. And it opens that up. And if you have a browser, all you can do is say, okay, folks, this is where to do it. And you can tell them to go up here to these 3 dots, right? And here it'll say add to home screen, okay? And you can add it right to the home screen. It'll even say install or just a shortcut, whatever they want. I choose install because once you get in their phone, it's priceless, that type of thing. So anyway, there's so many marketing schemes that you can do. And I say schemes in a positive way. There's so many things you can do if you're a contractor to do with NFC, whether it's put your website, your pay portal, your referrals to other contractors who you have a partnership with, all those kind of things. It's easy to do that with NFC. And I'm not saying it's new because y'all use it all the time, but as far as marketing your business, people need to get away from business cards and move into this, because the moment you can get into that customer's phone, it's golden, that type of thing. All right, and I use Linktree for that. It's just simple, you know, that type of thing, okay? So, all right, where are we at? Okay, good morning. Carlos is in the house. Good morning, Tara's in the house. Christopher's joined us now in the house. There you go. And again, here's how you do it. John is showing us #win, that type of, you know, so there you go. All right. Okay, let's get into today's lesson a little bit. I showed you how that works. And also, these are available. It's only like 15 bucks over on our website if you want to get one and don't want to risk the win. You're doing 2 things. You're helping promote us, but you also get a programmable card. And you can't get these NFC cards for 15 bucks already set up and engraved. If you go look at those cards, I think the closest thing you can get to this is those ones called Dot. It's called Dot, and you're going to pay a subscription. You're going to pay a lot, and it's got Dot on the front, right? So at the end of the day, why do I want one with Dot on the front? You know, promote us, type of thing. All right. Anyway, that's it for that, okay? All right, so let's go on and get into the lesson that we're going to be talking about today. So we're continuing on talking about equipment grounded conductors. As always, do the #win, get in on a spin today. And again, if you have any comments or whatever you want to post over here on the right, feel free to do that. And if you want to feed the hog anything, let me know. We'll feed the hog, and we'll see how the hog is. And if you want to see how anything works on Fast Track's tube, for example, because again, you're going to see massive changes over there. You're going to see a series on exam prep over there, and you're going to see monthly subscription being added and all this kind of good stuff. So if you're interested in any of those things, let me know. All right, so let's talk cable trays. So we talked earlier last week, we were talking cable trays, and we were talking about sizing and all that stuff for cable trays. And I showed you some pictures and examples of what a cable tray was. Basically, a cable tray is a support system. It's not a raceway. It's a support system. It's designed to support cables. However, in applications that say industrial establishments, and your AHJ is going to qualify what that is. You can't just make something an industrial establishment. Typically, it's producing a product, manufacturing a product, not just selling a product like a Walmart. That wouldn't be an industrial establishment, but manufacturing a product, that type of thing, typically will kick you into something called an industrial establishment. If your business, the business you're wiring or the building you're doing is located in an industrial park, then it's going to be an industrial building that is typically zoned that way. And if that's the case, then you could put single insulated conductors or single conductor cables in a cable tray. Other than that, cable trays are designed to support cables. And also remembering, as we talked about earlier, any SE cables or any NM cables that you may install, because cable trays are not restricted just to industrial establishments. You can use them in residential, commercial, and industrial. But certain cable assemblies that go in there have to be rated and evaluated for use in a cable tray. That's what CT use means. It means it's been evaluated for use in a cable tray. That's all it means. It means it's been through some testing, flame testing, other things like that. UL 1685 method 1 for flame propagation. It's met that in single insulated conductors and single conductor cables. It's 1 aught and larger. For the ungrounded and grounded conductors, equipment grounds that get installed in cable trays can go down as small as a 4 gauge, and it does not have to be CT use marked, that type of thing, because equipment grounds could be bare or insulated. That's a lot of info shortly, but go back and watch that episode. When it comes to cable trays, you'll get a lot out of it. Okay, we're talking today using that support system as an equipment grounding conductor. And does the code allow this? So as you can see right here, first of all, cable trays are permitted. 392.10 is going to give you the list of the permitted uses. Obviously, .10 is permitted uses, things like that. So remember that. And then, of course, as anything, you've got a .12, which is the uses not permitted, or what you can't do with a cable tray, that type of thing. Okay, so this episode is not specifically about cable trays, but we're talking about the use of a cable tray as an equipment grounding connector. And obviously, it should go without saying, it really should go without saying, we're talking about a metal cable tray. Obviously, you couldn't use a plastic one, but should go without saying, but you never know, right? All right, so let's read what it says here on the screen. Let's follow along. And also, we'll look at 392.60. This is just use permitted, but we'll definitely look at 392.60. Remember, 392 is the article for cable trays. All right, it says metal cable trays are permitted to be used as equipment grounding conductors where continuous maintenance and supervision ensures that qualified persons service the installed cable tray system and the cable tray complies with the provisions of this section. So again, 392.60, it's got to follow all the rules in 392. And basically, it's also got to follow any of the rules that are in the National Electrical Code in Article 250 as well. So we have a metal tray, and if it is in a location where it's going to be under maintenance and continuous maintenance and supervision. So that's another thing. You cannot use the cable tray as an equipment grounding conductor in a location, even though we know it can be used in residential, commercial, or even industrial. You cannot use the cable tray as an equipment grounding conductor unless it's in a location that has constant, continuous maintenance and supervision and ensures that only qualified persons will service it. That means they have a staff. That means they have people that are dedicated to the maintenance and upkeep, and they're the ones that are going to be working on it. A lot of people will argue and say, well, couldn't it just be when I hire an electrician to come in? That's not maintenance and supervision. That would be calling in to do contract work, that type of thing. So it is a difference in looking at how you do it if you're going to use it. Now, majority of the people that I know, very rarely, ever will they use the actual tray itself as an equipment grounding conductor. Most engineers are going to size an equipment grounding conductor, or the cables have an equipment grounding conductor that's in it. And if it's a metal cable tray, you're still going to bond it, do everything that you have to do, and we'll look at all that. But at the end of the day, mostly when they install cables in there, they've got equipment grounding conductors with the cable. However, there's a question that people do ask me from time to time. They say, Paul, they sell tray cable that does not have an equipment ground in there. How can they do that? Well, Depending on the number of conductors that are inside, the National Electrical Code 4 and larger does allow me to re-identify an equipment ground in a cable assembly. Okay, so we are allowed to re-identify. So you could use one of those extra conductors and re-identify it with green tape at each end in a cable assembly. You could do that. Okay, and 250.119, those things like that. So that's plausible depending on the number of conductors that's in your cable assembly. But a lot of times people are buying tray cable and they're using it, it doesn't have an equipment ground in there because they're intending to use it in a cable tray system that is qualifying as an equipment ground and conductor. The problem with that is now they have to have that continuous maintenance and supervision. You need to ensure that it's only going to be done by a qualified person, and that would be persons that are familiar with the cable trays or familiar with cable trays. And so when people ask me, I tell them from a manufacturer of wire and cable perspective, I tend to tell them don't buy the cable without an equipment ground dedicated to it. In other words, bare or insulated, it has to have an equipment ground because then you create other problems that you may not be aware of. And for that, cable tray is still other things that it has to meet in order to qualify as an equipment ground. But is it plausible at some point to use a cable tray as an equipment ground? Yes. If it's listed as such and you do all the other stuff, then it can be. What's up? O is in the house. Been a while, O. Code strong. That's what I'm talking about. Alex, I see you. Welcome. Absolutely. All right. So let's get back to the lesson. Okay. So there you go. Now, metal cable trays that support electrical conductors are required to be grounded as required for conductor enclosures in accordance with 250.96 and Part 4 of Article 250. So if you got a metal cable tray, as always, you're putting conductors in it, then what happens is, again, you're putting in conductors that could energize the metal parts. And of course, you have to meet all the other grounding and bonding requirements within the National Electrical Code, specifically to Article 250. So that should be a no-brainer. If you're going to be dropping conductors in a metal tray, then at some point you don't want any isolated part of the metal tray, because if it did get energized, then you could have some isolated metal part that somebody could come in contact with. So again, you're going to have to follow all of your normal bonding requirements. Make sure you make everything up. Usually they get bolted together unless you have two parts that are not continuous, means you have a gap or something. Then you're going to have a bonding jumper that's going to go over that in order to make it continuous. Okay, so you might have to look at. So the moral of this story: if you got conductors or cables inside of a cable tray, you have to bond it. It's metal. You have to make sure it's all bonded up. Okay, your bonding jumpers were necessary. If you have any parts that are not continuous, and a cable tray, again, like a ladder style or whatnot, it's just basically a U-shaped channel that supports conductors and cables. Okay, and it's not a raceway, so you don't treat it as a raceway. Although the code will talk about things when it comes to, we saw 392.22 with how many conductors or cables you can put in it, and then how that affects the ampacity of 392.80 by how many conductors or cables you put in it. But it's still not a raceway. It's still just a supporting system, okay? And that's real important when you read rules that talk about raceways. They don't necessarily apply to cable trays, although cable trays have obviously their own rules that you have to follow, right? Okay. So here you also see that metal cable trays containing only non-power conductors, okay, are required to be electrically continuous through approved connections or the use of a bonding jumper, okay? So there you go. Now what I want to do is I want to go look at 392.60 real quick, just to show you what it says. And let me jump down here really quickly here. Let's pull back. So this is 392.60 right here. Okay. So this is in 392. Okay. And it's talking about, again, the metal cable tray. It makes sense. That's what we're focusing on. It says metal cable trays shall be permitted to be used as equipment grounding connectors. Not required. It's permitted as long as you meet all the other rules you have to meet, right? then it can be used. Otherwise, you're going to pull your own equipment ground anyway, okay? Or you're going to use wiring methods that already have an equipment ground. Makes sense? All right, it says so. But if you have one that's listed as such, if you have one that is meeting all of the requirements to be used as an equipment ground, then you're permitted to do so. It also, again, you read again where it says where you're using it as an equipment ground and conductor. Again, this is using a cable tray, metal cable tray. It says where continuous maintenance and supervision. Okay, so that means that it's not just your everyday location. Like it has to have, if you're going to use the tray as an equipment ground, it's got to be continuous maintenance. It means you have to have a crew. Not like I can call Carlos and have his guys come out and look at it, right? Or Felix come out and look at it when something's wrong, call an electrician. No, it has to be have a crew that continuously monitors maintenance and supervision of that system. That's the only way this works. Otherwise, you're going to do probably what everybody else does out there is they just put equipment grounds in it. They don't use the tray, okay? But take uncool wire, for example. If we have cable trays, and we do, that have single insulated conductors in there or have cables in there, it is always under maintenance and supervision because we have on-staff electrical crews that work 24 hours because of all the equipment and stuff going on, then that would be continuous maintenance supervision. And if that tray was listed and marked as such for use as an equipment ground and everything was done properly, then guess what? It could be an equipment ground and we'd be able to run that and do that. And so that meant that if we put, for example, single insulated conductors in there, we could do so without putting an equipment ground with it because we are using the tray as that equipment ground, okay? No sizing involved. There's not a sizing issue about the metal got to be this. No, it just has to be evaluated and marked as for use as an equipment ground and conductor. And if that's the case, have at it. But you got to meet all those criteria, so it makes it pretty difficult for people to do that. It really does, most part. Well, let's go back to the code real quick. All right, so here, and it says metal trays that support electrical conductors, okay, shall be grounded as required for conductor enclosures in accordance with 250.60 and Part 4 of Article 250. So just to pop that up here, say bonding of other enclosures, right? So that is no different than what we've talked about in the past when it comes to feeders and bonding and all that kind of stuff. So metal raceways, cable trays, yada, 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 and other non-current carrying metal parts, that's the metal component, right? Not the conductor itself, which does carry current. It's everything else around it, enclosing it, supporting it, all that. If it's metal and you're putting these conductors in there, guess what? All right? Then you're going to have to bond it, that type of thing. And again, right? And that's what it talks about down here. Right? We can get rid of that. All right, then it goes on and says metal cable trays containing only non-power conductors, okay, shall be electrically continuous through approved connections or use of a bonding jumper, okay? So again, we do have an informational note because people say, well, in this last one, non-power conductors shall be electrically continuous through approved connections. What does it say? So down here you see an informational note. And this is a good reason we have informational notes because you're saying, well, it should be obvious. In applications where you have non-power, you're thinking, what is that? Well, that's things like class 2, class 3, that's signaling, that would be fiber optics, which all can go in there as well, to go in those type of trays, that type of thing. And so again, you have also down here, you have what's called the extra information or enhanced context. So if you're in Link, you have this. If you have the handbook, you have this. This is the blue text, okay? All right? And so it gives you that information and it gives you some extra commentary, that type of thing. Now see, for example, it says where metal cable trays only, okay, not power in there, it only contains non-power conductors such as fire alarm, communication, CATV, and broadband. The tray must be maintained electrically continuous, okay? So that's going to mean it's either one long continuous or you're going to have bonding jumpers that connect this. Now you're probably saying, well, isn't that the same for power as well? Well, then you get down here to the additional requirements for steel and aluminum type, which again are metal cable tray systems. And it gives you the rules down here where it tells you they shall be permitted to be used as equipment ground, provided they meet all the following requirements. Okay, down here is where you get, so up here it's just telling you right off the bat. If you're using a metal tray for non-power stuff, like the fire alarms, fiber optics, it will be continuous. And if it's segmented and it's not continuous, then it'll have bonding jumpers that make it act like it's electrically continuous, right? And that's just a general statement for all those things that are non-power. Then you get down into these, and this is where you're going to have to meet all these requirements, okay? If you're going to be using a normal metal cable tray. So I wanted to make sure we differentiate it. But that's a good example of an informational note. I'm a big fan of informational notes. Only because I think that if we use them right, they can give direction to the code user. Not instructions, but extra directions to where to go, where to look, and things like that. I'm a big believer in that. Okay, now let's talk about what we just saw. Now we're going to get into, that was the general statement, general rule that's talking about the use. It's permitted to use a metal cable tray as an EGC. Now we have specific rules we have to follow if it's a steel or aluminum cable tray system. And it says, steel or aluminum cable tray systems are permitted to be used as equipment grounded conductors provided all the following conditions are met. Not some of them, not part of them, but all of them, okay? The cable tray sections and fittings are identified as an equipment grounded conductor. MP, Husky, all those different. Reach out to your manufacturer of your cable tray system and just ask them point blank. And it should be in their literature. Other than that, then you're going to use wiring methods like cables and stuff that have an equipment ground and things like that. So again, make sure you always reach out to the manufacturer. Use them as your friend. Secondly, the minimum cross, for those that are identified for use as an equipment ground, it says the minimum cross-sectional area of a cable tray conforms to the requirements of 692.60b, okay? So it has to meet all those requirements in 392.60b. And I will show you that really quickly, what it means by that. And here you see B right here. So see this table? This is telling you the minimum cross-sectional area, right? Based on the amp rating, okay? So it's essentially like we do for an overcurrent protected device to size a wire type equipment ground. You notice we don't do this for raceways, right? And EMT doesn't have this little table, but we do for cable trays, okay? So if you see right here that if it's 100 amp rated circuits, maximum circuits that are going to be in that tray is not going to exceed that. So you could have 60s in there, you could have 50s in there, 50 amp circuits, 75 amp circuits, whatever. Again, then you would go to the 100, and based on the steel, so the minimum cross-sectional area has to be, for example, 100 would be 0.40, okay, square inches, just like for the fill for a raceway, but this is what it would be here. So that's the minimum cross-sectional area for that. And then aluminum, same thing over here. This one would be 0.20. Okay, so this is basically ensuring that you have enough metal. Okay, that's basically what it's ensuring, is it's enough beefiness to be able to handle the available fault currents and the ground fault currents and everything that's associated with its evaluation. Okay, all right, let's go on. Let's see. David's asking what the minimum clearance. Typically, if you're going to have power in there and you have low voltage, then you're going to have a separator. That's something that separates between them. That's going to be a separator or divider because you'll be intermixing those type of things. All right. So if you have low voltage, the rating is probably less than 600 volts. Right. So you're going to have some type of separator in that tray in order to create a separation. They do make separators that go in cable trays. Total pain in the butt, personally, in order to try to achieve that in there. But again, if you have 600 volt rated cables in there or conductors in there, and you're going to be putting in there lower voltage, just like when you go into a box, you're going to have some type of separator in there in order to be able to it. If you're low voltage or low voltage, for like your data communication and things like that. You're going to have the ability to have a separation. Okay. All right, let's see here. All right, let's go on. It says, okay, more requirements. All the cable tray sections and fittings are legibly and durably marked to show the cross-sectional area of the metal in channel cable trays or cable trays of one-piece construction and the total cross-sectional area of both side rails for ladders and trough cable trays. All this is done by the manufacturer, but if you don't see this markings anywhere on the rails, on the sides, anything like that, then there's a good chance, a 99.999% chance that that cable tray is not evaluated or listed for use as an equipment grounding conductor. It's never been evaluated. So don't just look at it and say, it's metal. I'm assuming that it is listed for that, or that it can be used because it is, quote, metal. Don't assume that at all, okay? Look for the markings. You got to find these markings. That's pretty significant. If the cable tray itself can be used as an equipment ground, then it has to be legibly and durably marked. It has to have its cross-sectional area on there. Otherwise, how do you use table 392.60b? You can't, okay? And you say, well, I'll measure it out. Well, no, the manufacturers have to provide you this markings, okay? If it's not there, reach out to your manufacturer. Don't just assume because it's metal, okay? Next, it says cable tray sections, fittings, and connected raceways are bonded to cord. So any raceways that feed into it, any fittings that connect it, any couplings that connect sections of a cable tray together, where they bolt together or however they fit, all that type of thing, they have to be all bonded in accordance with 250.96, the same way we would do feeder applications for raceways. So 250.96 isn't new for us, right? Again, we do this with feeders, with lock nuts and all this kind of stuff. We do that all the time. Y'all are used to that, making sure that you remove any paint or enamel that may inhibit the connection from metal to metal. You'll use lock nuts on raceways that either cut into the metal to make the enamel point, not need to be removed because it cuts into it. Or if you're bolting things together, mechanically connecting things, that you make sure that it's done so it's good metal to metal, that type of thing. Most of the trays that I've seen aren't powder coated. Most of the ones I see are stainless steel or aluminum itself, so it's got that type of thing, right? So that's not a problem. Now, it also goes on to say that in order to make all these connections, okay, in 250.96, you're using bolt mechanical connectors or bonding jumpers sized and installed in accordance with 250.102. The cable tray sections fittings are identified as an equipment grounding conductor, and you need to make sure that if you are connecting sections with a provided coupler, or if the manufacturer provides you with the ability to go across a section of non-continuous cable tray, that you are sizing that bonding jumper properly based on 250.102, okay? And so you're going to obviously also base this on the worst case scenario or the largest conductor in that tray. That's what 250.102, it's based on the size of the conductors, okay? So that's what you're going to be doing, and making sure that no different than we normally do for grounding and bonding is we want to make sure that it acts as one, okay? Acts as one. So we don't want any weak link in there anywhere. Undersized jumper would suck. It would affect the ability for that piece of equipment to carry that, create a low impedance effective ground fault current path. It would affect that, okay, and create a weak link somewhere in the system and nullify its effectiveness. We don't want that, okay? Hopefully all these are designed out by an engineer, especially if they're getting to the point where they're going to be used as an equipment grounding conductor. Hopefully somebody's done their due diligence. I can tell you as a plans examiner and supervisor of plans examiners, there were plenty of applications where I had submitted drawings to me that the engineers had designed it without putting equipment grounds in a cable tray system, only to find out that the cable tray was not, or whatever was installed was not. They spec'd it, but when the people who made the ordering of the cable tray and then the subsequent installers of it didn't check, and so it wasn't a cable tray that could be used as an equipment ground. So the engineer didn't design it with equipment grounds because they were in a tight little pinch of how they had to do this. So they did it with a cable tray that was to be for use as an equipment ground. But that's not what was ordered, and that's not what was installed. And then when the engineer came out on a final walkthrough, which not all engineers do, by the way, but when they did, they caught it. And at that point, there was an issue, okay? Well, one, because when the electrician looked at it, they didn't put equipment grounds in there, thinking, oh, the engineer knew what he was talking about, but they didn't read the notes that the actual cable tray system had to be marked and have all of this stuff on it to be used as an equipment grounded conductor. But it didn't have any of that. So there was a disagreement or a communication mix-up between the engineer, which really wasn't the engineer's fault because he said what to do. The contractor and whoever procured it, or the purchaser, purchase order, everything was done. They didn't pay attention to those details. It was a messy thing, and it really sucks because they were right at the end of a project. That can cause a crappy day. I'm just saying. All right. 392.60C called about transition requirements. If metal cable tray systems are mechanically discontinuous, means it's not one continuous, it has maybe sections that you have to connect together. It says, as permitted in 392.18A is permits to have these different sections. It says a bonding jumper size in accordance with 250.102, we kind of talked about that, is required to connect the two sections of the cable tray, or the cable tray and the raceway or equipment. Bonding is required to be in accordance with obviously 250.96. Again, just like you would do with feeder raceways and all, this should be common sense, tying all metal parts together, things like that. Okay, now, other listed electrically continuous metal raceways and listed auxiliary gutters may be suitable for use as equipment grounded conductors. Again, so a lot of times you may have an auxiliary gutter, you may have a metal wireway, you may have other metal raceways that obviously are listed under 250.118A to be used as an equipment ground. Okay, we are just simply talking about cable trays as well. But there are other applications you have to be aware of. Also, 366, 367, auxiliary gutters, 370. All of these, for example, metal wireways, metal gutters, all those type of stuff, they have their own rules that talk about grounding and bonding as well, but they are very similar to what we kind of just talked about, except for they are actually, in most cases, either going to be a raceway, and again, you're still going to bond them. You're still going to be following the rules in 250.96, unless those wireways or those gutters contain service conductors. And then again, if they're service conductors, then you have some stuff you have to follow in 250.92, right? Because they contain service conductors, that type of stuff. So again, we talk about all that in grounding and bonding. The key takeaway here is that grounding and bonding is only as good as you follow the principal rules of establishing an effective low impedance ground fault current path. And so if I have a cable tray and I'm going to use it as an equipment grounded conductor, it's either continuous, it's either complete. If it's sectioned or discontinuous, then I'm going to make sure that I use bonding jumpers or follow the manufacturer's instructions to make it act as one, okay? No different than one continuous piece of EMT, for example, right? Same concept. All right, so keep that in mind. Okay. If y'all hear some banging, it's because, again, I told you there's tons of people here and they're doing work outside. So right outside my office here. All right. So this is an example right here. So this is a gutter. This is a listed wireway. And obviously this is under 215.118A12, which we can go look at in the code. If I go back to here, let's go back real quick to 251.18. And we'll look at that right here. And we'll go down and look at 12 right here, okay? So, well, there's the cable tray one right here. Cable trays are permitted, okay? And again, this is here where it's talking about permitted for use as equipment grounded conductor. So we qualify that. Let's see here. Here you go. Other listed electrically continuous metal raceways and listed auxiliary gutters. Okay. So other listed. Okay. So listed for that, for use. Okay. We also see surface metal raceways listed for grounding. Okay. All that type of stuff again, so if you look at the picture here, if you go back to the lesson, okay, this is obviously, and in most of those gutters, and most of those metal raceways or those wireways, things like that, all of those will have been evaluated. They're boxes, so they wouldn't have a problem with being an equipment grounding conductor. Okay. All right, let's see here. All right, let's go on further. Okay, so this is an example of some surface metal raceways, right? So you see these things, it looks like the plug mold, the metal plug mold, that's surface metal raceways, things like that. We saw that is in 250.118A14. We saw that one, all right? Let's see here. So those are evaluated, okay? So again, those. Now it says listed for grounding, NEC Article 386 requires that surface metal raceways and closures providing a transition from other wiring methods. So basically you're going from, let's say, a raceway, right? And transitioning into an end knockout on one of these surface metal raceways, okay? You still follow the same rules. Typically, this is probably going to be all the same stuff that you would do in 250.96, that type of thing, okay? Well, it says when you make that transition from other wiring methods are required to have means for connecting an equipment grounding conductor. So if I'm using EMT and I'm transitioning into the surface metal raceway, and the surface metal raceway is all metal, then what I'll have is the fitting will go into the knockout and it'll have a lock nut, and that is okay under 250.96. These aren't service conductors, doesn't need that enhanced bonding, that type of thing. But remember, if I'm transitioning, you may see some surface metal raceways that actually, when it comes into the EMT comes into it, let's say, and connects to it, they may have a lug there. If they have a lug there, then some inspectors may say, well, you know what? I need you to put a bonding bushing and I need you to connect over to that lug with a jumper. If it's all metal, I don't see the need for that. But again, follow the instructions from the surface metal raceway. It may say otherwise. But if it's metal to metal, and we're talking feeders and branch circuits, and typically for this type of stuff you see on the screen, probably going to be branch circuits, then you should be okay to use the listed fitting and a lock nut and transition from metal to metal, okay? But again, always follow the manufacturer's instructions. Just saying. Be safe, better safe than sorry. Okay, let's check our knowledge really quickly and see what we got here. In order to use a cable tray as an equipment bonding conductor, well, which following must be true? So this one says to use a cable tray as an equipment bonding conductor. All right, it says, the cable tray is accessible to all personnel. It says a cable tray is electrically continuous through approved connections use of bonding jumpers. Okay. The maximum cross-sectional area is limited to 1 square inch. All cable tray sections and fittings are legibly and durably marked to show the cross-sectional area of metal channel cable trays or cable trays of one-piece construction, and the total cross-sectional area of both side rails or ladders as trough cable trays. Okay, so first one, it's not all personnel. It has to be to what? Qualified persons. The next one here, so that's true. No, this is the first one's false. It's not to all personnel. It is the second one, cable tray is electrically continuous. That is true. The minimum, this is false because they don't have enough detail for this one. And then the last one here is true. That type of thing. All right. Now let's talk about what cannot be an equipment grounding conductor. Okay, we get this question an awful lot. So what cannot be qualified or cannot be or is not permitted to be used as an equipment grounding conductor? Okay, so the following. The first one says the grounding electrode conductor. So this is a general statement because there is an exception. Okay, so generally, an equipment grounding conductor, a grounding electrode conductor, I should have said that. A grounding electrode conductor, GEC, cannot be used as an equipment grounding conductor. That's a general statement, okay? Now, there is an exception if you're using the wire type, okay? So if you're using a wire type, then the exception says if it's a wire type equipment grounding conductor installed in compliance with 250.6a, which again is talking about not creating objectionable currents, okay? So we can't have that problem. It says if you can do it and you don't have objectionable current issues, it says, and the applicable requirements for both the equipment grounding conductor and the grounding electric conductor in parts 2, 3, and 6 of this article shall be permitted to serve as both an equipment grounding conductor and a grounding electrode conductor. So what does that mean? Let's go to the code real quickly and show you this in the code. So this is use is not permitted right here. Okay. So the following shall not be used as an equipment grounding conductor. The general rule is going to be grounding electrode, grounding electrode conductors. Okay. Now here's some things I want to tell you about with that before we look at the exception. A grounding electrode conductor must be run what? Unbroken. Now there is allowances for splicing it, irreversible crimp, or if you use the CAD weld. Okay. Other than that, taking a GEC and running it from an electrode up to the panel, it's required by the requirements in 250.24 is that the GEC has to be connected to the grounded conductor. So there is an exception here, and this is typically what we would see in applications where you have PV applications where you'd be using the grounding electrode conductor and an equipment grounding conductor to serve double duty, like in 250.166 type of stuff. There is allowances there. So the big question people say is, well, can I have a main panel and I'm supplying a remote distribution panel, a sub panel, and then bring my grounding electrode conductor from the electrodes up to the sub panel and then use the equipment ground that's in the 4-conductor equipment ground that's running? Because the equipment ground, when it goes all the way back to the main panel, it is connected together with the grounded conductor at the same bus, okay? This is what we do at the service equipment. So they'll say, but can I use this exception for that? You possibly could, depending on how you run your system. But one, you can't do it in a way that creates objectionable current, okay? And two, you have to make sure that the equipment grounding conductor was sized properly to be the same requirements as would be required for the GEC. So they'd have to meet both requirements. Secondly, you can't just take that GEC up into the sub panel and take it into the bus of the equipment ground terminal bus, because remember, in a sub panel they're isolated and the neutral's floating. All right, so you can't, and you're not going to have an objectionable current thing there, because if you follow all the rules in 250.24b, then you're not going to have an improper case to neutral. But the problem is you would be splicing the GEC that connects over to the EGC that's going back to the panel. That would be a problem. Okay, so is it plausible that we could do something? Yes, but you got to still follow all of the rules for the GEC, and then you still have to follow all the rules for the EGC. Again, a lot of acronyms, equipment grounding conductor and grounding electrode conductor. If you follow all the rules for both and you take all those into consideration, it is possible that you could use the EGC to extend the GEC, okay? Now, what subtle difference is this, though, when it comes to those remote distribution panels? This is a subtle difference. Let's look right here. It says, the not permitted. I'm not permitted, okay, shall not use the EGC, okay? I cannot use the GEC as an EGC, okay? See how that sounds? So I can't take an equipment grounding conductor. I can't take a grounding electrode conductor itself and use it as an EGC. But I can use the EGC potentially, okay? Like it says right here, a wire type equipment grounding connector installed in compliance with 250.6a and the applicable requirements of both equipment grounding conductors and the grounding electrode conductor in these parts shall be permitted to serve as both an equipment grounding conductor and a grounding electrode conductor, okay? They're only talking about the EGC, okay? Can serve as both. So that EGC that might be running all the way to that remote distribution panel is being used as both, okay? That type of scenario. You have to still meet every bit of the rules. Now we can look here at the commentary, and this is what it's telling you right here in this commentary. It says, equipment grounding conductors, EGCs, and grounding electroconductors, GECs, each has specific functions. Absolutely. Okay, the GEC is going from your neutral and it's connecting. It sounds like 251.21. That has moved, David. It is now under, okay, it is now under the exception here in 251.18. So the 121 has moved, right? And it is now down here for that, okay? Under right here. Because I'll show you, we don't have, notice right here, David, we don't have a 121 anymore. It's gone, got moved. That's all it did, was drop it up in there, okay? So it tells us that, and then it goes on to say where the EGCs are permitted to be any other type in 251.18 and are used to provide an effective ground fault current path for both for normally non-current carrying metal parts. The exception in 251.18b1, which used to be 251.21, as David points out, permits the wire type conductor to be used for both purposes if it satisfies all the requirements for both. Okay, and it does not carry current during normal operations. And it would not, if it's truly an equipment grounding conductor to a remote distribution panel and it's isolated, okay, it would not. It's not connected to the grounding conductor, right? It would not, but it has to be sized properly. The only caveat that you're gonna run into, is the splicing issue, because 250.24 is very clear that from the grounding electrode, the GEC has to run to the grounded conductor unbroken, okay? And then if you do break it, you got to meet those caveats, right? And that doesn't mean you just bring it and you terminate it into a bus and then you come out of the bus with the EGC. So you see, in theory, this exception, again, works. Sorry about the noise, folks. It works very well for the PV systems, right? Not going to work real well to do this with the sub-panel remote distribution thing. So it's important to locate your electrodes near the main service equipment rather than think about doing it at a remote distribution panel. You get what I'm saying? But there are some allowances in here if you meet all this. You may not meet it. That's why it's an exception, okay? The next thing we look at is right here. You cannot use the structural frame of a building as an equipment grounding conductor, okay? Now, you may use the structural framing of a building like the I-beams in order to extend the connection, let's say, to a grounding electrode, but you're not using it as an equipment grounding conductor. There's a difference there, okay? Big difference. Okay, so if we're talking about the metal framing the building, we're not talking about the thin metal studs in the walls, okay? We're talking about the framing, the steel of a building, the structural steel, supporting the weight, okay? If that's the case, you can use that in the code to extend a connection to an electrode, but you can't use that as an equipment ground, okay? Just want to make that distinction, okay? All right. Now let's get into the identification of, actually, you know what? Let's go on and save this. Let's actually do a part 4 on Monday because we're running out of time and this is noisy as hell here in the office. I didn't realize that they were going to start that early. We'll save that for Monday. Let's do some giveaways today. And let's do some giveaways here. And we'll go on and we'll do this identifying of equipment grounding conductors on Monday. So join us for that. We'll knock that out on Monday. So let's do some giveaways. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong buttons already today. Got me all flustered. All right. Let's do some giveaways. Thank you all for hanging in there through all the noise there. All right, let's see here. Peter. All right, Peter. Let's see here, Peter. You have a Fast Tracks tube. Unless you have already got that, then let me know. But those that aren't familiar with the Fast Tracks tube, you should check it out. It's amazing. I'll show you. This is what it looks like. You can search for things up here in the top, like whatever you want to search for, like calculations and things like that. Here you see other people have searched stuff. Coffee Hour Live is right here. So if you come here and you want to watch it, just click on Coffee Hour Live. And this is where you can watch the show right here. When we do some seminars, again, you'll see this is new. It says live only. So again, this is what's going to be happening with the Fast Tracks Tube. That is going to be an exclusive platform for our webinar series. And again, right there. And here's your member plans. Here's where you can get all the videos, even the new interactive video. And then the podcasts are all available right here. But right here is where you're going to see the new series for the exam prep and all of the Fast Tracks episodes that are going to be coming up. For those that are enhanced members, you'll be able to see them here, okay? And once the transition is all done, then all of you also that are basic members will be able to see that, but you have to wait until the transfer. So it's only available to the enhanced members as they get added. I talked about that in Monday or one of the days, I think it was Wednesday. I talked about that Wednesday. Go watch Wednesday when I did the special announcement about all the changes, okay? All right, so let's do this. Let's do this again. Peter, if you already have that, let me know. Let's go on in. But Fast Tracks Tube is becoming the most popular thing. You can also use a code right now if you want to get in on it right now before prices go up. Is you just go to use All right, Douglas Webb. You are my favorite coin is the Cision coin. So again, I use that all the time. So I'm going to put you down for that. And that is going to be what you're in the drawing for on June 30th. And by the way, first of the week, or maybe even today, emails will start going out by Jeff to all of you that sent your information in. We appreciate you for the first quarter. You'll get your instructions and just follow the instructions and you'll be good to go. All right, so there we go. All right. And when I say instructions, some of the stuff may have to be customized. I mean, some of the stuff you might have won needs your name or whatever you want to put on it. So that's the interaction that it'll be with Jeff. So, all right, Manny is in the drawing for the Trade Hog. Anything you want me to ask the Trade Hog, I'm more than happy to ask the Trade Hog. Just let me know. Feed the hog. Okay, let's go. No whammies. And again, I appreciate y'all being patient today. A little flustered. A lot of banging going on. It's all good, though. It's all good. Samantha L. Okay, you get also an ultimate coin drawing. That is, again, that's my favorite coin of all because it lets you make decisions and you have no guilt. No guilt afterwards. These are all available on our website if you want to get one and don't want to wait. That's up to you, but they are available on the website. All you do is go to our website or you can go to fasttracksystem.com/shop, S-H-O-P. We appreciate all the patronage. It literally 100% goes back into the show, whether it's buying equipment or doing something. I don't take a paycheck for that type of stuff. So. Felix C. Okay, so you are also in the drawing for the Trade Hog. Congratulations on being in that drawing. We'll be giving away Trade Hog subscriptions. There you go. What is that? What is it? Adam says, Basement King trying to get out of... What are you talking about? What are you talking about? All right, here we go. Is he trying to get out of selling counterfeit code books? I don't know. Did you buy one from him? Somebody bought one from him? I'm just saying. Oh. All right, Red Dog. You are you got a subscription to Fast Track Tube. You may already have it. So if you want me to spin again, let me know. I'll spin again. just let me know in the comments if you already have that. I will be more than happy to spin again. Let me do it again. Trade Hog is neat, right on your phone. If you're a premium member, you get our mobile app as well. It makes life so much easier, and you get access to the Office Hog. And it's being upgraded. This might have already been upgraded. All right, Jason, our CME CP, he is in the drawing for Trade Hog as well. Wow, there's a lot of Trade Hogs being given away today, or in the thing. Whoop, whoop, I gotta add that. Let's do another one real quick. Let's go. Now we'll let you folks go. Oh, I'm out of the box I put him in. Dude, this is costing me terrible money here. All right, Terrence Grace, you are in the drawing for 12 months of Trade Hog as well. Wow, dude, that wheel is just. Let's do another one. Come on. I'm in a giveaway mood. Boy, there's a lot of chances to win Trade Hog. That means we'll just give away more of them, right? Maybe we'll do like 5 Trade Hog giveaways. All right, Tara, you are in the drawings for the electrician's knife. Now, this is the little mini knife, which is awesome. There you go, a little mini knife. Okay, but if the big ones arrive and we have them ready by then, we'll let you know, and you can have a choice if you want the bigger one or the little one. I like the little ones simply because they go right on my keychain. I use them for all kinds of little things, opening boxes and everything like that. So, all right, anyway, that's it, folks. I gotta let you go. We appreciate you joining me. Hey, everybody, let me give you a meat box. You ready? Here we go. That's enough of that. All right, anyway. Appreciate you, folks. I love you. Appreciate you coming every week and joining me. Share it with everybody. If you want to share the love, I will do this one commercial. If you want to join in and share the love, they're only like 15 bucks. Get one of these coffee hour cards. They're available on our website. Get the NFC. You can reprogram it if you want, or you can leave it with all of our stuff on here. And when you're at the job site, you can tap your coworkers' phones. You can share the love, help get the word out there about coffee hour. And again, we appreciate all of you. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless and have a great weekend. We'll catch you Monday morning. We'll wrap up identifying the wire type equipment grounding conductors, follow all of those rules, and do some more giveaways, and just have a good old coffee hour. Take care. God bless.